Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Palma Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria, and I am your host, and today I'm joined by Kerry Allerton from Evolution Yachting. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you, Ria.
Good. Well, the reason we have you on today is there is quite a bit of panic going on within the yacht crew industry. It is the Mediterranean season. Things are heating up. Crew are looking to fly over to whether it be France or Italy or Spain, the Mediterranean Balearic Islands. And now all of a sudden, there's been this announcement this morning that flights are going to be restricted between the U.S. and Europe. Italy is showing restrictions. And so people are sort of getting really worried. They're worried about the ports. They're worried about flights. They're worried whether or not there's going to be work. And a lot of people have a lot of questions. So I contacted you and I wanted to know if you would be able to answer some of these questions with regards to crew and heading into the Mediterranean season. Can you shed some light on it?
Definitely, yes. And obviously, as a yacht agent, it's our responsibility to be informing our clients in the local areas what the situation is, what concerns are, what the risks are. And part of our job is to enable that the freedom of movement or the ease of movement from one port to the other, and making sure that crew and captains are well informed about, in general, permanent restrictions or permanent rules, as well as temporary issues that are happening as we're experiencing now. And as we, Evolution Yachting, as we spoke last time, we have offices throughout the Med, so Turkey, Greece, Croatia, Montenegro, Spain, France, we're everywhere. And so we have been having a very open conversation between all our officers the last 48 hours in particular to find out what do we need to be telling our vessels, arriving vessels or vessels who are heading over from the Caribbean, those who are in place at the minute, and give the right information, because like you say, it's very easy to be overwhelmed with misinformation, or we're not sure what the sources are coming from. And so in terms of what's relevant for our sector, and we're talking about yacht crew, at the minute, as you said, there are restrictions in Italy. So there is restrictions on crew movement, but there's always, so for example, shore passes are not being issued as readily by the ports in Italy. However, if you need to travel, if there's a crew member needs to disembark, then that is being made possible. That is being made possible. They're not locking a crew on the boats, if you see what I mean. It's saying, tell us your reason for travel. Can you tell us you're in full health? And then they're allowing that case by case. We're seeing that a lot through Italy at the moment. Things may be changing, obviously, day by day, and we'll definitely stay in touch with Yachting International Radio as we hear of things. It's not quite the case in France and Spain. At the moment, there's no restrictions on crew travel in particular. We have seen, like you say, some airlines are closing flights. Maybe there are restrictions in airports, but that's for the public in general. Yacht crew at the minute, the best advice that we can give is we're talking to port authorities. Port authorities are taking guidelines from the World Health Organization in terms of how vessels can best be preparing, and it's the same information that we're seeing for the general public. It's about personal hygiene and sanitation of the area where you are, taking precautions about close contact, and these are things that we do need to be paying attention to. Especially because, crew live in quite a close environment. But again, crew, I'd like to think, are healthy, hygienic, sensible people. And so these are very, very easy steps that we can take. Another thing for captains to be aware of is that ports are, if there is a vessel movement, so if you're arriving at a new port, please talk to your port agent or the port authority, because a maritime declaration of health may be required. And most ports are doing that as a standard document that most captains are familiar with. This will need to be submitted in advance of arrival. Some ports even have their own document that they're creating, and it's just signing to say we have healthy, fit crew on board, no one's showing symptoms. Another proactive thing that crew can be doing is just to make sure your medical log is up to date. So if there is anybody who comes on board or any questions are asked randomly, you can show that you're being proactive about keeping your crew healthy and monitoring symptoms. And the symptoms are very recognizable. Those are the main actions that we're saying at the minute. Like I say, so far in Barcelona and in Spain, we're in close contact with the port authority. There's been no updates since last week, and they were all based on the World Health Organization guidelines for maritime industry. we are in conversation, and like you say, there has been lots of change in the last 24 hours, so we are expecting a reaction. Until we get that reaction, we're just trying to keep all our crew calm, and like you've said before, without entering into a general debate about what the coronavirus is, yacht crew tend to be, we're not the demographic that is going to be most affected in terms of rate of fatality amongst people. Yacht crew tend to be young, fit and healthy. The rate of fatality is very, very low, and it's isolated to the elderly who have health conditions, who already have existing health conditions. So while we need to take steps and be concerned and look at the reality, that's part of it. It is a flu virus. Every boat knows what happens when one person gets the flu on board. It happens every year. It's passed away. It's a question of managing it. It's a question of being sensible where isolation is needed, and that can be maybe something to take into account. But again, I'm not a medical expert, but we are talking to our hospitals and our medical practitioners. So we're giving the best information to our crew, and contagion is only when patients or when crew is symptomatic. So if you're not showing signs of the symptoms of it, then you're not contagious, even if you may be a carrier. So these are things we're trying to bear in mind and weigh everything up and give the right information, like you say, to our crew and to our clients. And as you can imagine, we're getting a lot of questions. And this is with Evolution Yachting. It's very, very important. It's a very, very important situation. At the same time, we're trying to keep a realistic view of it. And saying it doesn't have to debilitate us completely. We need to be looking at the actual facts and the actual situation, and put faith in the port authorities and the government to know that they will be giving us the best recommendations at this time.
Well, one of the fears that is happening is a lot of crew have booked their flights, they've booked their accommodation. What they're worried about is that once they show up, and they're coming from South Africa, they may be coming from New Zealand or Australia, coming here to look for work. They're worried that there will not be work once they get here after having put out that expenditure. What do you say to them?
Normally when crew are flying here, particularly, presumably they have a contract in place, and presumably they're in communication with the vessel where they're about to take work. So the idea, it's all about communication, and talk to them. And if the captain advises to hold off and delay flights just until things are over, or maybe let's revisit the situation in a month, or we're going to a different port in a month's time, I'd rather you embark there. It's a question about keeping that communication up, not panicking, but it's a simple call to the captain or to the management company to ask, listen, can I get on this flight? Am I going to be taken care of when I get to my destination? I think that's the best thing. For crew who are traveling without work, maybe they're flying from South Africa to Antibes, for example, to try and look for day work. Maybe it's a question of delaying that for a little bit. Like I say, this week, we're right in the kind of the epicenter of, I feel this, we've kind of reached a bit of a climax here at the minute. And I think in the next 72 hours, 48 hours, we're going to be seeing what is going to happen, what isn't going to happen. And the general guidelines, I believe from what I've seen, is that if travel is not absolutely necessary, then people could be advised to reconsider. Again, we have a social responsibility. If you think that you've been if you've known anybody who's had any cases, or if you've been in an area where you know there is a lot of cases, maybe it is your personal responsibility to just isolate yourself a while to see if any symptoms show. Again, talk to your local facility or medical facility, look at what is the current guidelines. Another thing that I was just thinking about this morning is we're quite present throughout the Med, as I said before, dealing with a lot of questions, and so far, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, this is where this has spiked. None of our officers have actually come across any case within any crew. No one has been confirmed as being a carrier or being symptomatic of this. And we have access to quite a big population of the crew who are currently in the Med, obviously. That's something to think about. Like I said, we as crew are not the prime target for people who will suffer the worst of this virus. That's something to bear in mind as well. Maybe the other thing would be to talk to crew agents, see what their advice is, because crew agents tend to deal a little bit more on the side with traveling, with day work, if crew are flying somewhere in particular to look for jobs. maybe sit back and look from the internet. The internet is a very good resource for that in a minute, and just be sensible about things.
Have you found yet at this stage, I know it's fairly easy, early in the season, but that people that have had jobs because there's been, say, yacht charter cancellations, they're back on the marketplace? Have you seen any indication of that whatsoever?
No.
Okay.
I haven't seen captains shut crew down or tell crew to get off the boat, or I have heard of a few charters cancelled, but that was only because the MIPIN was cancelled. So because the MIPIN was cancelled, then the charters were cancelled. So far in general, I think that I'm not an expert to talk about the charter market, but I haven't seen a big drop in requests or cancellations. If anything, just from, the yachtings, we've been through hard times before, economic crises before, immigration crises before, and the yachting industry hasn't really seen hasn't been the worst affected in these cases. The reality is that people who have the means to overcome these situations still do and still will carry on with their holidays, especially private boats. In fact, even a private yacht might even be owners may even spend more time on their boats this summer because there's an isolated, hygienic. There's not many things are more hygienic than a private super yacht. Yeah. So it may be that the industry won't be affected because of that reason. Like I say, these days are very important in seeing what the reactions are. And we at Evolution Yachting are definitely monitoring that and keeping an open conversation from country to country. I know that this afternoon we're expecting Monaco. I think Emmanuel Macron is making a speech this evening, and based on that speech, maybe authorities will be implementing new guidelines tomorrow. Let's see what he has to say. Monaco, our agent in Monaco, says there's a meeting with the port authorities this afternoon, so let's see what they have to say. We're also expecting the Spanish government to make some statements today. So it's a question of, like you say, trusting in the facts, trusting in the data, and trusting in the professionals who know what's best.
Well, I guess in conclusion, really, what we're saying is that be cautious, but don't be overly dramatic, because nothing at this stage has changed in accordance to, we just have to be a little bit more careful and double check before you jump on that airplane and head to whichever port it is that you are planning on going to.
Yeah, just be sensible. Check with the airline. The airlines may be putting measures in place for not relevant to yacht crew, but a couple of weeks ago I had a friend who was due to fly to Vietnam, and she got an email from the airline saying that the cabin was going to be maintained at a temperature of 27 degrees Celsius because it's been said that the bacteria, the virus, won't thrive in temperatures over 26. So again, talk to your airline. Airlines, they have a social responsibility as well, but they want your customer, they want what's best for you, and so they'll be changing every day as well based on their guidelines from the airline authorities, and that's really it. Just not maybe listening to every single Facebook post that you read, but I see something that says a Japanese doctor says this, and keep your lips wet and breathe in for 10 minutes. I pay attention where it's a Japanese doctor, his name, his title, the hospital he works in, what his field is. Let's keep a sense of reality in this as best we can.
Well, and they are saying that the higher the temperatures, the likelihood that the virus will die off on its own natural death. And in the Mediterranean, we are getting very, very close to that time frame where our temperatures are going to soar. And we've already seen a winter that actually was much warmer than it ever has been in the past. So I can imagine in the next, I would even say a month, we're going to start seeing temperatures hit 25, 26, 27. So, if indeed that is correct information, because we can't verify that, and it is always still constantly in motion, the research that they're doing. But if that does end up being a fact, then I would say the Med is the perfect place to be come a month or two from now.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, it's a flu virus. Yes, people are dying. More people are dying every day from other things. I'm not belittling the COVID-19 virus. It is a phenomenon that we need to approach with the right manner, but it's a flu virus, and if you do get the flu, it can be you will get over it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think The most important advice that we've heard here today is just to monitor the situation. Don't overreact. Just continue to keep your eye, and as well tune in here at Yachting International Radio, because thankfully we have you over at Evolution Yachting that is keeping your finger on the pulse of everything that is happening. And you have assured me that as things happen, that you will come on board and we will advise everybody through the Palma Yacht Crew vlogs exactly what's going on as it happens. And I think that is probably one of the most important things we can do at this stage.
Yeah, and I want to mention I saw the video statement from Hedda Clark at Club Tamar this morning as well that was posted, and that's very sensible. That's very, if people haven't seen that already, I would encourage them to watch that. That's more from a medical point of view, and that again was a very much in line. The tone of her message is very much in line with what we're saying as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you ever so much, Kerry, for your time. Evolution Yachting, and we look forward to the updates as they come in the future.
Will do.
Thanks. You have been watching another edition of Palma Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. Please tune in again.